Evening there. This is a follow-up video to the Mark Sampson getting sacked video I did a couple of days ago. It turns out the FA knew more about the allegations of him at the Bristol Football Club and the improper conduct he had with players in his squad. But the unfortunate thing is, and what really annoys me, is they're not being very clear on what this conduct was and what allegations were made, or did he have an affair, or anything like this. They're just saying he had an inappropriate. It was just inappropriate actions were made against a member or members of the squad. Blah blah blah. They're using lots of legal terms, which is actually really frustrating as a fan of sport, and in layman's terms, it just makes it really difficult to actually understand what he was actually sacked for, and also why did the FA hire him, knowing that there were these safeguarding issues. And this has been a bad week for women's sport in general, with the women's bobsleigh team having funding cut by their governing body. This whole FA Mark Sampson England football women's football team saga is just scandalous now. It's gone past claims of bullying to the FA not doing their job properly, their due diligence, and it's it beggars belief. But it's not just the women's game that's come under scrutiny. It's the men's game as well. There's been articles and statements given by FIFA and UEFA about the amount of money in transfers, the agents' fees, financial fair play. There's been a lot of these things going on all summer, and this just caps off a rather negative period. I personally think for football or soccer, if you're watching abroad in America, there's with what all the scandals we've had at FIFA and UEFA and CONCACAF and now in the FA, and it's just a never-ending cycle of, oh, one scandal's gone, that's fine. Oh, another one's come. Oh, right, and there doesn't seem to be any real change in how the game is run. Banning corrupt individuals properly, because somehow someone else gets in. The due diligence, the protection and the integrity of the game is coming into question. There's too much negativity around that sport. But this is just, the press aren't promoting the good things that football, cycling, winter sports do to a community. Great things. And there's too much negativity, and this overshadows that the Women's Super League is now moving to a winter league. They've got 2 more teams in it. It's grown. This weekend's the first weekend of their new season. And of course, all these allegations against Mark Sampson have come out this week. He's been fired. It's disrupted the qualifying campaign. So this saga would continue rumbling, because we, as fans, are being let down, and this is going to be negative for young females wanting to get involved in sport if their funding gets cut, compared to the men's equivalent. Or these things happen with the FA. It's going to put young girls and women off taking up sport. And the funding cut with the women's bobsleigh, what was the 2012 Olympic legacy meant to be for? If we're cutting funding for sports where the governing bodies of sports that we have a chance of winning medals in or have won medals in, like Lizzie Arnold, for example, what was the 2012 legacy all about if we are in Olympic cycle right at the end, right within a few months, cutting their funding? And that beggars belief. On another topic that has been rumbling on for actually quite some time now, the deal with concussions in sport, and the health and well-being of sportsmen during and after their careers, and or how the concussions are dealt with as well. The NFL obviously is playing this weekend at Wembley on tomorrow night. The NHL and the NFL are having the CTE lawsuit at the moment. Now, CTE, I don't fully understand all the implications of it. I have had concussion myself. There's strong evidence, and it's not a perfect science, but constantly getting knocked about in the head does give you a brain injury, and can lead to Parkinson's, memory loss, early onset dementia, and mood swings, depression, strokes, all sorts. It's not just the concussion side of it, because Mike Ribeiro, an ice hockey player, has had to retire for substance abuse issues this summer on the off season. And a lot of, especially in the more contact sports, more physically demanding, high pressure sports like ice hockey, like rugby, American football, even football itself, you will find a lot of the players, the athletes, have issues with alcohol, drugs, prescription medication, erratic behaviour, and we can list numerous examples across multiple sports of the athletes having very, very, very wild private life. So this is what I'd put it. There are some characters out there, and sport does need characters, but we as fans obviously expect to see the characters on the field doing crazy stuff. But at the same time, not enough is, I don't think, done to help educate those who are maybe not the most academically gifted. They might be very vocationally gifted. A lot of sportsmen are very, very, very skilled, and a lot of them, especially in lower levels, have actually had real jobs like builders, scaffolders, roofers. A lot of them, factory workers, have done that kind of, lived in the real world. It's not necessarily that concept. It's when they retire, the medication they'll need for injuries, the operations they'll need. If they've had to retire from, let's say, motorsport, they've lost both their legs, like Billy Munger did earlier in the year. The aftercare, if they have a debilitating injury, like a knee replacement, shoulder replacement, little things that you do get in life anyway. You get a bad back, you have to have operations, like an appendix. This happens, but when they retire from the sport, that's it. They're not getting another paycheck from the sport. Their contracts are done. And yes, they might have earned a couple of million to hundreds of million endorsements. That's not the problem. It's what happens if their kid gets sick? They're obviously no longer earning money. I mean, some of them might, I've got great business brains, but some don't. And then they run off the rails, and then we get all the negative stories about people like Paul Gascoigne, Bob Probert. And there's not enough of these success stories being printed to say, look, you can have a life. And a lot of them, about a third of them, just have mental health issues and get referred for severe depression, mood swings. So this is another big issue for the sport, and there's a lot of campaigns in the press, and I know the Daily Mail is probably the least popular newspaper out there, but their sports campaign on the concussions issue and the welfare issues for current and ex-sportsmen and women, that's one of the few campaigns I actually do agree with the Daily Mail, because they're just a right-wing rag. But with putting it in context and actually throwing it in our faces, saying, look, we're paying to watch these guys and girls kill themselves, basically, because I'm going to the ice hockey this weekend, and I bet you I see a guy get completely flattened, who's completely concussed, and his legs are wobbly, and it's not that the players are going to get concussed, or they're going to get injuries. It's a contact sport. Let's not take it out of it. That takes away from the gladiatorial combat that is contact sport. It's the medical care side of it, and the various sports taking responsibility, saying, yes, you will get concussions, you will get contact injuries, you will have broken legs, that's not the issue. It's why the sportsmen are rushed back in so quick. The athletes, some of them are really forced back in well before they're ready, and then by the time they're 30, they have to retire because their knees are shot, or they keep getting concussion symptoms, and they keep getting ill. And then when they retire and when they're at home after their careers, their standard of living and the standard of life they have is not as nearly as good as if they were allowed to recover, given a bit more time, given the proper physio. That's another big issue here. This is what's not being mentioned. It's, concussions, yep, no, CTE. It's not just that. It's, we know they're going to get concussed. It's how the protocols are put in place to say, look, okay, this guy is not, this guy or this girl, she or he ain't right. And it's looking after them whilst they're still playing, because you can get a concussion. Just take the 6 weeks. That should be a minimum, not like, a couple of weeks off, no training. 6 weeks without anything, under constant, regular, independent medical review would be a starting point. And yeah, keep paying them, because just, while they're under contract with an employer, you cannot not pay them while they're under contract. But rushing them back, and that's also pressure from the fans, which is us. If the sport is shown on like big TV networks, television rights, they want us, so the money going in, the owners, the leagues itself, they want their stars to play. Great, but if you're forcing them back and you're killing them, yeah, that's going to put people off letting their kids play. So, oh god, this video has really gone on, isn't it? It was meant to start with the FA scandal. It's ended up on concussions in sport, well-being, but they all link in together, because if you get the wrong culture, the well-being of the athletes is put at risk, and it all links in. And this is all scandals, and the funding cuts. If you have funding cuts, that means you have less funding for personal trainers, the medical staff, things like that. I mean, the British women's bobsleigh team are going on a GoFundMe page just to get enough money just to even compete at a World Championship event so they can qualify for the Olympics. Right? And they're already a third of the way there. That's the minimum budget they need. That means they're going to have the shockingest, worst quality gear compared to, let's say, the Canadian team, or the French team, or the Swiss, or the Russians, or someone whose funding has not been cut. So that's also a lot of stress that they don't need. And yeah, it'd be a great Cinderella story if we won a medal in that, and that'd be like 2 fingers to the British Olympic Committee, because, to be honest, they've really let them down now, badly. But I'm going to stop this video here. I'm going to break down a couple more videos on each individual section. So the FA with Mark Sampson, the concussions and well-being, and the negative press that a lot of these sports get when they should get positive press. And we've had a great summer with women's sport, and now this autumn has turned into a damp squib, and the negativity is not helping. So please subscribe, please post in the comments below, and thank you for all the views on the previous video. That means a lot, and we're growing the channel. Ta-ta.